Hey folks, welcome to Module 3. I can't believe it's week 3 already. The time is just flying by during the semester, so glad you're here. Again, I hope the videos are helpful that I'm doing on these introduction to the modules. If they're not helpful, let me know. I said that in the course module under the in this activity. Hey, if these are not working for you, feel free to let me know. I'm totally open to input. I want the course to really be good for you, and I want you to get whatever you need to help you really develop your leadership skills. And as a matter of fact, we're coming to the end now of this first section. The first section was on leadership foundations, and really we learned that's a basis, sort of foundational basis for what a theory is, learning about that, how we view the world through our theories and our paradigms and our models. We have gotten some intro to leadership theory and some of the ideas around leadership theory. We have looked at the importance of knowing yourself and learning about your own leadership style. We've looked at some assessment tools and then also done some assessment tools on yourself, kind of getting to know what your strengths and your weaknesses are. Started to talk about the complexity of the healthcare system and what are some of the leadership competencies that you need to have as a healthcare leader to address those very complex problems within the healthcare system. And so today we're going to shift over to, and really not today, just today, but this week, the chronology of the study of leadership. And so in the first module, we looked a little bit at some of the historical evolution of great man theory, behavioral theory, and then situational leadership theory. And then in this chapter, we're going to spend the entire time looking at leadership, evolution, and thought. And so the three objectives are to describe the progression of leadership thought as it's portrayed in the different theories and models. So again, great man or trait phase, and understand the components of those theories. And they're important. We're going to look at the sort of the progression of leadership thought and how it's progressed over time, and begin to use those models and concepts to understand what's really needed and what can be pulled out of those different theories for the healthcare leader for today. And then to understand and begin to pull together those concepts into your own model, not just what is needed, but what do I need as a leader with certain strengths and certain weaknesses. And so here we'll really begin to start to continue building upon the personal leadership model, which is really the major deliverable for the course. I want to remind you that in Module 3, there are 2 items at the end of the module. One is an online survey. There's 5 questions on what you thought about the content, how it's packaged, how it's presented. And then the second activity is to just maybe give me some narrative feedback on what you like and what you don't like, so I can modify the course as we go to make sure that it's meeting your needs as a learner. And so you will get credit for doing that. I give you credit every module for completing these different activities. And so it's important to stay engaged with the content. And so as we move into Module 4, and really we're Module 3, we're really focusing on Chapter 4 and on sort of the chronology and the history of leadership theory. And again, this module digs much deeper into these ideas than the other chapters have in the past. And so we'll focus on reading these different theories and trying to pull out of them different components that you can use for your own leadership model. And I know the one that resonated when I was reviewing the material was the idea around situational leadership. And I remember when that was the sort of the buzz for healthcare, and healthcare organizations were bringing in consultants. We were reading the books, we were taking the tests, we were having consultants help us to begin to build out our own sort of skill set around situational leadership and characteristics. And basically the text does a nice job in showing how leadership styles really you're either directive or you're supportive and nurturing. And so you can begin to develop both of those different sort of behaviors where you either are supporting and sort of encouraging and pointing in the right direction versus saying, hey, this is the way we need to go, and how those are on a horizontal and a vertical axis. And based on the situation, you will apply different interventions or different styles or different behaviors. And so if you look at that cube that is in the book that outlines the model, I think you'll find that there's some really helpful principles in that even today. And I think about times when I've been in leadership roles and I've had to walk into a real crisis situation where, I really had to be directive as the person in the room with the power, as a person with the authority, and really the accountability also, because accountability and authority always go together. How I had to be the one to say, look, this is what we're going to do. I know what we need to do here. Let's do it. And then as things would become more calm, more stable, then you could begin to become more supportive in terms of allowing other folks to begin to really take the roles that they can walk into as they develop their own competency and their skills. The other thing we're going to talk about in this module and look at it more deeply is the whole darker side of leadership, which is really something that all of us, we've seen it. You know it when you see it. You probably worked for it before and had a boss who was not a good leader. And then maybe the worst part of it is that, could I also myself in my leadership style demonstrate behaviors or dark sides of leadership to those who I lead? And so there's a small assignment in the module about doing an assessment on your own sort of dark side behaviors. And a gentleman by the name of Nicola Civella was an Italian diplomat, philosopher, politician during the Renaissance period. And he achieved tremendous accomplishments, but did it through cunning and did it through deception and through other underhanded ways. And the challenge around really the dark side of leadership, and it's, all of us, we encounter it. And so even as we build out our own leadership toolbox, how do we admit and to our own flaws as leaders, but also how do we navigate working with those individuals who are known throughout the organization as being challenging individuals? And that the difficulty with those types of leaders is that oftentimes they are successful, they get results, they are allowed to flourish within the organization because their bosses many times just want them to get the job done, and they do. And that's kind of a human reality. And so how do you as a leader, and maybe oftentimes even as a teammate, a fellow leader, cope with individuals who display behaviors that are unproductive, that are cunning and perhaps deceptive? And so I think, there's a few things. I think you always want to do the right thing. You always want to keep yourself in check. You always want to be clear in all of your interactions with others. You always want to be above board. You want to stay calm, and you don't want to allow these individuals to press your buttons. And most of all, you want to keep moving forward. I think that is absolutely critical, that you always are forward looking and you're not pulled back or distracted by the complexity around you. Last thing I want to talk about today is I want to introduce the idea of organizational culture to you, because culture is now another layer of complexity we're going to put into our leadership thinking. And culture is really everything within an organization. And it's important that all of us as leaders understand what is an organizational culture. And so high level culture is what the organization is all about. What are the rules, the behaviors, the non-spoken and often non-written rules around how an organization works? And so we'll begin to study culture more and more as we move through the model. But I just want to begin to get you thinking about the reality that leaders and how they behave really sets the culture of an organization. And it's critical that we begin to understand and think about what is culture, how does culture work, how does culture get changed, and what is my role as a leader in having an impact on not only changing, but actually creating or actually even supporting an unhealthy culture that we may find ourselves in. Every organization has a culture, and oftentimes early on in our career, we haven't moved around in different organizations to really understand the differences in culture. But as you progress in your career, and even as you work in different work units, different teams, you'll really begin to see that which you have not been able to describe about a particular work environment, that was a cultural piece, a cultural component. And so we'll talk more about that as we go. Enjoy the module content, and I appreciate you taking time to do those 2 survey items at the end of the module. And we will catch up soon, and reach out anytime if I can help you in any way. Have a great week.